Welcome to the Journey Mindfulness podcast, where we explore the depths of human experience and the mysteries beyond. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Linny Vassallo, a truly unique individual navigating life with a vibrant blend of passions.
Oh,
There you go. How about that? So, Lenny, you are a yogi and self-described ADHDer and future novelist, a creative writer.
correct. Oh my God, what a beautiful introduction. Yes, I am all of these things. I am discovering every day that these are probably the most defining aspects of who I am. So I'm happy with that introduction.
Well, I know you as a great mindfulness teacher. Like that's, how we met and you did that for, I'm sure it's still a part of your life with focusing and creative writing and getting it to flow. But what are you most passionate about right now?
Well, I think I'm most passionate about, um, whew, that's a good question. I would say constant learning. Constant learning. I think that is something that I didn't realize was so important for me to maintain enthusiasm about life and everything is just like, I have to be learning. It's not optional. It's not like something I can just assume will happen. Yes, it will happen. You learn things every day, but like, I think learning in the past few years how pivotal it is for my brain to be stimulated so that I don't find stimulation in other ways. So, like, in negative ways, because like, I love to learn now. I mean, I've always loved to learn, but now I'm like, "Oh, I have to set aside time the same way that I set aside time for a workout or meditation." Like, I have to set aside time to, like, be learning new things that are completely alien to me to keep my mind excited and engaged.
So, okay. I mean, that sort of makes sense, but it's interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone put it that way, that that's important, like that learning time, like being intentional about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, does that have something to do with ADHD, or is it just like your curiosity and
I think it's both and. I think, um, but I think primarily what I think I've always loved to learn my whole life, and it's always been something that I love to do, but I didn't realize that it was like a necessity because of ADHD. Because if I'm not stimulating my brain in positive ways, I'm gonna find other sources of dopamine and excitement that may or may not be so beneficial to my well-being.
gotcha.
Because okay, I think Dr. Ned Hollowell, who's like my favorite expert in the field, he's a psychiatrist and he has ADHD, which is why he's also way more believable than a lot of these other little pundits. Uh,
Yeah.
but I believe the things he says, and he's I'm not gonna say that he's like me, but I will say he's like friendly and smiley and bubbly and has like a cute little shiny face, and I feel I feel a kindred spirit in him. But anyway, he talks about how when you have ADHD, it's like you're always itching to feel alive, and you're seeking experiences that give you that sense of aliveness. And I know that to be so true in my own experience because when I want to feel alive, like when I'm, and boredom is not the boredom, I would say the ADHD boredom in my experience is not the boredom that other people feel. It's like an existential boredom of like, I need to do something intense to feel alive right now. And so, ergo, my move to Mexico in 2020 and other such random decisions from out of the blue that were just like, who thought that through? Not me. That was impulse, but I mean, in that sense, it's like, I wouldn't say those things were negative choices, that's debatable. But the fact that I felt so strongly that I needed to feel alive because I wasn't feeling alive in the bored state that I was in was that I've always been led by those I've been pulled by those feelings of needing to be alive, and I follow them and I go with them.
I know, and I admire the it's like yeah. I feel like there's a sense on the one hand, you're talking about, okay, this existential boredom and like I wanna like crawl out of my skin, but then it's like I have the idea to move or the impulse to move, and maybe I don't think things through, but I also have this unique sense of adventure and I'm
Yeah.
willing to go on it. So I don't know, it's like a weird balance. Like I don't it's
Right, right.
so
It's
easy to
the
say
fact.
like it's bad or good or
Right, exactly. And that's, I think, what Dr. Hollow points to, and what I'm, beginning to learn for myself is that that itch is great. That itch is what makes Simone Biles do gymnastics the way that she does. And Michael Phelps, that itch is what made him swim the way that he did. Like, that itch to feel alive can make you very competitive, can make you very adventurous, can make you very entrepreneurial. But that same itch can also make you very likely to become addicted to alcohol, to drugs. It could also make you somebody who gets high off of crime and gambling, or, like, so it's about recognizing that that itch is real and consciously directing it to the best of your ability to things that are going to be good for you versus,
Mhm.
because yeah, the move to Mexico, I think, was, like, positive and beneficial. But there were also times in like my past where I've been addicted to alcohol. And not like it's like I wasn't even drinking it because I was like sad, or the way, like, stereotypical images of like a alcoholic in a bar, like drinking their sorrows away. It was really just because when I drank, I felt more alive. I felt like, like, and I like feeling that way. So I would chase those things that make me feel that way, which is why I've been able to stick to working out for so many years, because I love the high. I love that feeling of aliveness that I get. So, like, as long as I'm chasing the right things with that itch, it's good. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
I feel like there was a question I had where it's like, what are the secret superpowers of ADHD? But I feel like, and I don't know if that framing is offensive or not, but like,
No, I mean, well, some people might be, but I like it. You could say the
yeah,
gifts of ADHD. I think they are superpowers though too. I think, yeah, that spirit of adventure for sure is a gift I appreciate. And yeah, like, so many people tell, I'm not saying this to sound fabulous, but so many people in my life have told me that they admire me. I'm like, for what? For doing ridiculous things? And you know what I mean? For making, but, like, moving to China, living in all these different places that I've moved to live on my own without knowing anyone anywhere around me or knowing the language, or like different adventures I've taken myself on just because. Uh, and so yeah, I think definitely a spirit of adventure, curiosity for sure is a strength. Um,
what about like creativity in your writing?
yeah, creativity is a huge one. It's like your brain connects things from all the different regions, and I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like one of our strengths, I guess under the umbrella of creativity, is the ability to improvise, and like improvising really well, like, because like the ideas just come, they just come. And so having endless ideas is a benefit, as long as they're ideas and not endless anxiety or endless anxious thoughts, and that's another reason why you have to be really conscious about directing the thinking that you're doing. Improvisation for sure. I think art, anything creative, art, acting, dancing, athletics. Um, I'm becoming more and more aware of like having more bodily intelligence than I have ever been previously aware of. Like just more like maybe I'm more of a kinesthetic learner than I thought before, than I was ever taught to understand.
Mm,
Like I wonder how much more I would have learned in school if they really catered to those different learning styles.
like, you said kinesthetic, like tactile, like just
Yeah, like doing the thing to learn what you're doing. Like the way
yeah.
that like in our mindfulness training, like instead of like sitting and talking about theory all day, it's like just go teach mindfulness to this group with what you've learned. And then you learn more usually from physically doing it
Uh,
than just sitting around reading about it, talking about it, listening to lectures, etc.
sure. So that the experiential type learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing, by the way, another strength of ADHD, which is probably why I got so fixated on mindfulness, is because I was good at it. So people with ADHD are also very much present to the extent that we don't have very much future awareness. So like I feel like I fell into the lap of mindfulness because I felt like, oh, these are my people. These are people who appreciate the snow flurries that are falling right now and are feeling the magic of it. But
Uh,
that was natural to me before learning to appreciate it and to see it and to notice it. But many people will walk by this flurry that's happening right now and not care, not notice it, not enjoy it, not feel it, not appreciate it. And mindfulness taught me that this was a skill that other people needed to be taught.
you were already good at.
Yeah. And so I think that's why I liked it too, because having ADHD, there were so many things that I wasn't good at. So to find something that I was good at naturally without trying was like, great, let me do this.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it makes sense. You
yeah.
discover something, that it puts a name or a label and the technique to something that you're already doing well.
Yeah.
It's attractive.
Hmm. Yeah.
So those are some of the superpowers or creative powers of ADHD.
Yeah. Yep. Hyper focus is also can be. That there's a lot of like two side. I would say there's probably like a good and a bad for each. Not uh, not bad. All of these gifts are gifts if you learn to direct them for your benefit.
I
Because so, for example, if I stay present all the time the way I had been for like a decade without ever thinking about my future, then you don't do things like save money, et cetera, because in your mind, you'll be fine because the next moment will be the present moment. And if this moment's okay, then the next moment's okay. So, like that kind of thinking and without having like this constant future awareness is can be detrimental. So it's like learning to appreciate the gifts of it, but also recognizing that you need to remind yourself that there's a tomorrow, that there are things you need to prepare. Or like for all of them, like hyper focus can be great. Like the fact that I could be excited about a topic and like read 10 books about it and like get all jazzed about it is great. But if I should be applying to jobs and preparing for interviews, then that hyper focus isn't great because that's unrelated to the job search that should be the priority. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. The priorities get out of whack. Like
Yeah.
is that, I mean, like, oh, the part of your brain, like that salience network where you're like, okay, this is the most important thing. This is not as important.
Right. Well, a challenge that is maybe not a gift of ADHD is the inability to prioritize because in your mind, you have like an interest-based nervous system. In your mind, the thing you're interested in right now is the most important thing. Like, yeah, 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 I should get a job. Yeah, 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 I should do this. I should do that. But what I really want to learn more about turtles, like,
Sorry, I got distracted. I was looking at the snowflakes. So how do you there's also I just want to make mention too. Like how do you characterize like ADHD? Because there's also I was talking to someone about talking to you, and I'm like,
mm,
we're talking about like trauma and like childhood and the impact that that can have too, and just
mhm,
I think we don't always. I don't know. Maybe it is like I feel like that's not talked about a lot, but maybe
right. Well, yeah, actually, not like I'm talking about someone who knows everything about the cutting edge of research, but from what I've gathered the past few years, a lot of the research has pointed to ADHD being a result of childhood trauma or being, like a neurological, you know, I don't know what the word might be, but a neurological difference that happens because of childhood trauma.
mm,
And I feel like that I could see that being 100,000% the case. And I don't think I feel like how do I say this? I don't think I care anymore so much what the root cause is or what the name of it is, so
mhm.
long as there's like a recognition of there are people who live with this experience and then this is how to live better given this experience that you live with.
Yeah. What when did you like how long have you known like when did that realization like was it when you started learning about mindfulness or when did you kind of realize that these were challenges like that you symptoms that you were dealing with if you would
Oh,
kind of
here's
call
the
it that.
funny part, Jim.
Let's hear it.
Uh, I okay. So I was given a diagnosis when I was like 22, but I felt skeptical
Yeah.
because the only thing I had to do was fill out like a little quiz. Um, like
Yeah, like a
fill out
random
like
or some
it
little
was like a
measure.
rinky dink little quiz, and then the psychiatrist was like, here's Focalin. And I'm like, okay. Um, and I had also been speaking to like a life coach from California at the time. This is what was happening. Let me backtrack. When I was around 22, 23, this was like after I came back from China. I was teaching English over there and I came back and I didn't know what to do with my life. Like, I don't know. There's so many directions I could go. And
As many
this,
of us were.
exactly. And this coach was like, I don't know, girl, you sound like you have ADHD to me. I guess because whenever I was on the phone with her, I was giving her like 1,000 different ideas for what I could do. She's like, your mind is all over the place. She's like, maybe that's something you should look into, or go see someone to see if that might be the case. Because if so, it could be helpful to learn how to manage that. Because she wasn't a therapist, she was a coach.
Uh,
So anyway, I went to see my mom's psychiatrist because she already had a history with this guy, so she trusted him, and she's like, "Well, why don't we go see him?" And I saw him, and he's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Is your room passing? Yeah. Do you like art? Yeah. Is it hard to focus? Yeah. Okay. ADHD." Well, I felt this is BS. Like I don't whatever, but I'll try the medicine because like I wanna be able to do things. So let's try it. So I tried the medication and I was like a different like I loved it. I could focus, I could read, I could write papers. Like I really don't know how I got through I got through college through charisma, by the way, which is another gift of ADHD.
mm,
Because I would just say to my professors, I didn't write my paper. "Don't you want me to have another week to do it?" And 9 out of 10 of them were okay with that. So, like, because I was a fun person in class and appreciated them, I always got extensions or whatever, but it wasn't because I was always getting things in on time.
It was
So,
because of the Jedi mind tricks.
yeah, I don't know, whatever Riz I have, I don't so then, I went to I in all of this, because I was so motivated all of a sudden, I applied to graduate school and I got in and I started going to graduate school. I'm like, "Oh, here I am." Like 1 month after taking this medication, I was like enrolled at UPenn and like doing graduate work and feeling important. Like I made all the great decisions, thank God for this medication, blah, blah, blah. But I hadn't gone to like therapy to like understand what ADHD was, or like I didn't do anything besides take the medicine.
Mhm.
And what's that thing like pills don't teach skills kind of situation. And then also
Yeah.
no one told me, and I also didn't bother to read the side effects of medication. So I didn't know what to expect. And there honestly at that time wasn't, well, there wasn't social media and there wasn't, I mean, there was Facebook, but it wasn't like Facebook now. Like it was just people posting their party pictures. It wasn't like anyone was posting informational content like ADHD stuff the way like
Yeah.
you see all over the internet now. So like I wasn't getting information from any other sources either. Um, but the only thing I did hear was that you could get off of medication on the weekends or on breaks. Like you only take it when you need it kind of thing. So I think we had like after the summer semester, we had like a break before fall semester. So I stopped taking medication. And when I did that, I became a corpse. I could not move, could not get out of bed for a whole week. I was like so depressed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. It was like the come down from the medication was so severe. I'm like, this is horrible. I don't want to. And then that whole spiral made me question, like, what am I even doing in graduate school? Because all of those decisions were made under this medication. Is that who I
So
really am? Like, it made me question so much. Um, and it also jacked my nervous system up so much that I was having emotions I never had before, like extreme sadness, extreme anger, like just all these extremes that I was like unable to handle. So, long story short, I withdrew from the program and moved to Miami.
well, be do you feel like the medication, in your opinion, was, inhibiting those emotions?
Inhibiting? No, I think it was causing them
It was
because
okay.
because it well, I don't know. The only way I can to describe it is that it jacks up your nervous system so that you're much more reactive and
So okay.
much more emotional about everything.
Alright. So then that comes out right before and then you move to Miami.
Yes. And then I started going to therapy, excuse me. And I love my therapist. She gave me really wise counsel. And when I was seeing her, I was taking, think I had switched from Focalin because of that bad experience. I was taking now like Wellbutrin and a little bit of Adderall, I think. But I wanted to get off of both of them.
Mhm.
And I told her, and she was a health psychologist. So she was very much wanting me to get off of them too.
Okay.
And she was the one that was like, I need you to go work out. I need you to do yoga. I need you to go eat healthy. And I need you to take a mindfulness class.
Wow.
So yeah, so she was like very directive. Like these are things to do. And to her credit, she did not tolerate me complaining about the symptoms or about, what challenges I was having. Like she was just giving me solutions after solutions, which was very helpful and is what I needed at the time. However, She didn't really maybe she didn't know as much about ADHD because, again, it wasn't as well known in that time, especially in women. I think she understood that ADHD existed, but to her, it was just a matter of learning how to focus and calm down, which is why she sent me to work out, to eat healthy, to do yoga, whatever. I don't think that she really, I know she didn't really give me like ADHD specific life skills to develop outside of these very great skills that I did develop that were very beneficial for ADHD. There wasn't like a conscious, you have ADHD, these are your problems, these are the things you need to be aware of and working on. So I kind of lost awareness that I had ADHD, which was again a good thing because it made me believe in myself, not believe that it had all these limitations. But it made me forget that I do have some limitations that I need to learn how to work with. And so after that, I just was like, I was off the meds and I was doing yoga and doing meditation, and I was kind of cutting for 10 years or more, maybe let's say up until about 2018.
Mhm.
I was like living fine and dandy. And now there's some research I'm hearing, which would make sense for what I experienced. But there's some research I've been hearing lately about how um, when women hit 35, all women, when they hit about 35, they get, all these hormonal changes. But when these hormonal changes happen when you have ADHD, your ADHD turns into a wildebeest.
Mm, okay.
And this I did not know. And remember, I had forgotten that I had ADHD. I hadn't been doing really any too much of anything conscious to manage it. Like I've been surviving, but I hadn't, really developed a lot of the skills needed to be an adult on the planet. Um, and so at some point I started drinking to fill the like I lost, I don't know how to explain it. It was almost like I got bored with everything. And I also couldn't get myself to do the things that I wanted to do, even though they were things that I really wanted to do. Like
Like,
I had this passion to want to write, and I sit down and I can't write.
so just like feeling stuck, or I would, I mean, not able to take action, but is that procrastination or is it something different?
No, that it's different because procrastination is when you want to do something, but emotionally you don't do it. Like because of an emotion, like this that I can't stand doing bills. I'm not going to do it. So it's like because of a negative emotion, you don't do something, is generally what procrastination is. And then ADHD paralysis is like, want to do this thing, really want to do it. It's actually something I want to do. And I sit down to do it, and I have a cognitive block. Like it's not emotional, it's cognitive. Like I just can't. It's it's very hard to imagine when you haven't experienced it, but it really, the only thing that would get me past it would be taking like a shot of Bacardi or shot of whiskey, and then suddenly I can write.
Okay. So you
So it's
learned to get
dopamine.
over it that way. But no,
Yeah.
but I appreciate your candidness, but, like, a lot of people are gonna hear this, and I think there's a lot of, it's helpful to hear, like, what are the challenges that you struggled with, and, like, how do you work with those? Like, as someone who writes specifically about this issue,
Yeah.
because that's not something, like, I could maybe relate to. Like, what do you
Mhm.
mean you can't do it? Like, I don't get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. There's a channel called How to ADHD on YouTube, and she describes it as, well, there's so many different ways that it's described, but she describes it as like a wall that you just can't get yourself to get over.
Like, you
And
see it, but you're not getting over
yeah,
that wall. Oh.
yeah, it's it's surreal because, and then when you talk to anyone about it, no one gets it. Everyone's like, "What do you mean?" But What do you mean you can't do it? I can't do it. When I tell you I tried everything, I'd go to a library, I'd go to a cafe. I moved to a town in Mexico known for writing. Like I did extreme things to get myself to write. And it's just beginning, it's just started to happen over the past couple of years. But that's thanks to learning a lot of new skills and thanks to a little bit of medication that not sure if I want to stay on forever, but it has been really helpful. And so I may just say, let's stay, or I may not. But it's not like anyway, I don't even know because it's so hard to explain. But I
Well,
think who has ADHD and is listening will know what I mean when you're just like, you feel like, why can't I do this? What is going on?
so how did you start as a creative
Mm.
person who wanted to write, who was having a block with that? How
Mhm.
did you start? Like what skills did you start to learn where it started to shift that for you?
What a great question. Wow. I think it's been a variety of things. One is the learning about writing. Uh, like, hello, sometimes it's helpful to have a prompt. I was a creative writing teacher in a high school for a couple of years, and it still didn't occur to me because who knows why? Maybe because memory, I don't know. But just learning that all these little tricks that writers use, such as having a prompt, because if there's a prompt, you can respond to a prompt. Like things like little things like that. Watching, I think I watched a lot of documentaries about writers. And learned like what did they write about? And like um I also learned these amazing skills from this woman on Instagram. What's her name? Her name is ADHD with Jenna Free. And she's like, I went to a group with her, and it was like 5 weeks of really valuable mind shifting education in normalizing everything that I thought was just like insanity. But not that I never thought I was insane, but the way people would look at me when I would describe what I was experiencing, maybe like you're looking at me right now.
No, I'm laughing. There was some post you had where it was like sane in the membrane.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I never felt like I was crazy, but like when people would look at me funny because of the experience that I'd had and would try to explain to them and they just couldn't get it, I'm like, well, maybe. But I have this book also. It's called The Anti-Planner. It's amazing.
Mhm.
And it's a book of just like nonstop strategies. And it talks about like the five main emotions you have with ADHD are, I feel like I should go over there and get it so I don't misquote.
Do
But
it.
it's I'm gonna get it. That's- um
I also saw you had an Isabel Allende quote that was kind of interesting.
yes, it's about I'm taking a class with her right now. I love her.
Oh, you actually are taking a class with her?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Like she has an on-demand class that I'm taking.
Oh, okay, okay.
um, Stuck. These are literally the main emotions that are always felt. And you open this book and you identify which of these am I feeling right now? Stuck, overwhelmed, unmotivated, disorganized, or discouraged. And
Wow.
then yeah, those are the five
Um,
main states.
I'm just thinking of okay, that's gonna hit people. That's gonna land.
Let me repeat, repeat.
Repeat of
Stuck, overwhelmed, unmotivated, disorganized, and discouraged. And then
Mm.
once you get in there, by the way, people, I apologize if my voice is very screechy today. I ran earlier this afternoon, so I'm very hyper right now. So maybe I should tone it down. You'll be have a more grounded presence on this podcast because
This
I
is a
feel like I'm
very,
all the way up here.
very academic and monotone channel.
Okay.
Bring you. It's all
Okay,
good.
so understuck, when you get to stuck, then you have like different subchapters, which will also resonate. Difficulty getting started, indecisive, perfectionistic, distracted. Ah, any problem I have, I just open this book. Literally, and there's a solution for everything because then under overwhelmed, it's intimidated, overcommitted, panic, burnt out. What do you do? Unmotivated, lacking accountability. That was one of the things that was my problem. I was my own boss for like, I don't know how many years, but who am I being accountable to?
Mm.
Like I anyway, I'm not gonna say too much about that, but there needs to that's another thing. The things about ADHD that are great, but that are also like you have this entrepreneurial spirit and these ideas and this zest to create and to make changes in the world and blah blah blah. But then once you start doing it, there's like who's holding you accountable? Because if nobody is like
So part of the learning is, okay, this is
yeah.
the piece I gotta take a look at.
Right, right. So like I still within me have this great desire to be entrepreneurial and blah blah blah, but at the same time I know that all by myself without like an amazing system in place, I don't want to end up down the same road as before. Like I feel like I would prefer if I were to be entrepreneurial again to be like in a team or at least have some people to be accountable to cuz I'm very relaxed with myself.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like you have to be, like, tethered so you don't go off too far in
Exactly.
some way.
Yeah.
Interesting. Who wrote that book?
This queen,
Yeah.
I think every therapist should have this book because I feel like, and I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking to the various therapists I've met in my life who have not been able to guide me around ADHD because they didn't know. Like they just have like the basic textbook knowledge of, oh, scattered attention, can't sit still, when it's so much deeper than that.
I wanna know because 'cause I'm gonna go buy the book.
Ah,
Um,
The Anti-Planner, How to Get Shit Done When You Don't Feel Like It, created by Danny Donovan.
okay.
Yeah.
And
It's
the cover looks very 80.
yeah, it's phenomenal. I feel like this alone, like if somebody had given me this book 5 years ago, I might not have had to go through all the drama, AA meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
then, you know what? I wouldn't have a story to write about when I become a future novelist. So,
I know, right? Like, all it was you gotta be careful, right? Like, sometimes we look back and it's like, "I can't believe I did that," or,
mhm.
I caution people when they're like, "Well, I regret this." I'm like, "But yeah, but that's all part of your story, right? Like, it's all what
Yeah.
makes it interesting."
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
like, how uninteresting would it be if everything went right or whatever you thought was
Right.
right?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, what kind of adventure would you write about?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. It's true. It's true.
So what is giving you so you have this blog, this Substack, which and I'll share the links, but you also had some other interesting resources too. It was like it looked like a journal or something on
Oh, yeah. So I put a meditation journal up because here's another thing I found out, which no one in the mindfulness community ever talks about. If I were to ever re-enter the I'd have a lot of things to say. And one of them is that um I mean, it's not that teachers haven't said this, but I think there's a lot of times you hear repeated in the mindfulness world. Oh, when you're bored, observe the boredom. Become curious and interested in the boredom. Isn't, like there's all this kind of like gaslighting yourself about the board, which maybe is okay if you don't have ADHD, but if you have ADHD and you are feeling stale and stuck and bored, it's actually a real problem that you actually do need to do something about and not sit around and question and become curious and exploratory about.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you why. Because I did that. Because for years, I would say mindful, not that it stopped working for me, but that it was no longer of much benefit to me. Where like I could meditate for an hour, I could do this, I could do that. And I just felt like shit. Like, not that you're doing it to feel better, but it wasn't helping me in any way. Like, it's weird, and it was shocking to me, and I didn't believe it, so I kept doing it,
Mm,
and I kept doing it and like, trying to be more curious, like, trying to like, "What is this boredom? What is it?" And I kept doing that instead of my dad kept telling me, "Just do something else. Try a different kind of meditation, like,
yeah.
stop doing mindfulness, like, stop forcing yourself to do something just because you have your identity wrapped up in that or because you think you should or you need to be teaching." But that's what I told her, I'm like, "I'm teaching MBSR classes. I can't not be doing this." Like, that's like the core teaching is like, you have to be practicing yourself in order to be offering this to others. But when I would practice myself, I would want to punch the window. And then I, and it's like I kept and my dad kept telling me, try something else. But I'm like, no, no, no. I need to stay doing mindfulness because I'm teaching it. I have to stay aligned, blah, blah, blah. So I was doing it to my own detriment. I mean, it
Mm.
sounds where like I was just observing the boredom, observing. And the reality is, and many mindfulness teachers do say this, like, you need to be mindful of when a meditation is no longer serving you and try a different approach, blah blah blah. So I was doing that, but I was doing that all under the umbrella of mindfulness. So like, I'm tired of the body scan, I'm gonna do a breath. Oh, I can do that anymore, I'm gonna do compassion, I'm gonna do that anymore. So but I was still doing it all under the same mindfulness umbrella.
Yeah.
So my dad's like, "Oh, there's all these other things you could do. There's like Joe Dispenza, and there's creative visualization, and there's, the pops, like, try something else." And I'm saying that. Anyway, long story short, I have not been doing much mindfulness. I've been doing a lot of yoga and doing a lot of creative visualization. And the creative visualization, I believe, is what has given me like a new rebirth in the past couple months. Like, it's fascinating how stagnant I felt for years because I kept forcing myself to stay in this mindful space. And now that I'm doing this conscious, creative visualizing, like letting my brain do what it does naturally, like allowing it and like just letting myself imagine these great things. And then I'm like, suddenly the world opens up and I'm alive again, you know?
So what do you is that prompt like guided or what is it just you giving yourself like creative space to like exercise your imagination?
It's both, both. Like I've been listening to some YouTube, this lady named Jess Shepherd. She's got some really cool, like just like awesome journeys. Like she gives you like all these descriptions to imagine, like these places or these planets, like things that maybe I would scoff at. Like a former version of myself would be like, "Oh, what is that?"
Did you say planets?
Yeah, planet, like
Um,
underwater, like just cool like adventures. But then eventually you're getting into your subconscious. And so I've been having a lot of interesting experiences with that.
that's
And
like a okay. I mean, this is like in my sort of metaphysical realm of like astral
yeah,
traveling and like
yeah, no,
that will be
you're
your
right. It's been really
Interesting.
great. And like I so my mom passed recently, and in these journeys that I've been taking, I've been meeting her and she's been giving me messages. So that's been really beautiful too.
I am touched that you would share that. That's really interesting to me. That is something that I've heard from other people that they do.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I know that that's fresh, but that is, you know, that is one of the things that is talked about is that you have I was listening to a meditation actually before we got on, but it's just unlocking your hidden abilities, but it's essentially like you sharing that. I know that that happens,
Mhm.
but I'm impressed that you shared it because that's interesting. Um, and for people to maybe hear that have never heard of that, that the other side is there and
Mhm.
accessible.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Um, well, I'm sure there's a whole lot more to talk about. My goodness, we're just scratching the surface. What are you writing about? Like, what is kind of making you excited right now in your world?
Well, I'm
Different world.
so I'm excited about writing daily, being consistent about it.
That is
Um,
skill for ADHD.
yes. And one of the things that I hear said a lot is similar to what we say in mindfulness, where it's not about staying on the breath all the time, but it's about the return. So it's like maybe not about so much about being consistent, but about having a sense of continuity. Like if you miss a day, then okay, just come right back the next day. You miss a day, okay, come back the next day. Um, but because I've had that forgiving attitude or that more Kaizen approach, like that incremental, take it a little bit at a time approach to habit formation.
Yeah, the Japanese, like,
Yeah.
novelist,
Yeah.
procrastination.
Like so I've been able to get myself to do a lot of things consistently. The one that's been hard as much as I've been wanting to do it and have been, so focused on it the past few years has been writing because the reward isn't as immediate. So like, like if you do a workout, you feel the reward like 10, 15 minutes into it. Like you're already feeling strong and excited and pumped up, like there's an immediate reward. There's immediate reward to a lot of things that I do consistently. Brushing your teeth, or, taking a shower. It was immediate. You feel fresh, you feel good. But writing, it depends. Some days you might feel a reward. Some days you don't. Some days it's just like you got it done. But even without ADHD, reading writers write about or talk about the act of writing, it seems like it really just is something that you just have to do all the time, every day, because you never know how you're gonna feel at the end. You like you never know what's gonna come out of you that day. You don't know if you're gonna feel a reward. You might write the shittiest thing of your life and it be worthless and you not do anything with it. But the point is that you have to get yourself in that act of just doing it daily. Cause I find, at least in my experience, it's the easiest habit to fall off of because there's not that constant sense of reinforcement the way there is with other things.
Mm,
At least for me. Like
yeah.
I don't get a rush or a high after I'm done writing for the day. Like sometimes I get a little sparkle here and there, but it's not every time. So,
Hmm.
but I do get into like a fun little flow state in the middle of it, which is, gratifying. But it's not the full body endorphin flush that reinforces your workout the next day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. So my mind and my curiosity,
Yeah.
I want if you don't mind, and if you do, it's
Yeah.
not a problem, but opening the door to what you said, my metaphysical
Oh, yeah.
curiosity going back.
Yeah.
When souls pass, they're you're not in this life, right? So there's a
Mhm.
difference, and people often share that it's surprising to them that in the difference of the person, right? Like the soul, in a sense,
Mm.
knows. Um, but what if you if there's something you could share has been a message that perhaps your mom or that you've gotten that
Mm.
has been helpful or inspiring to you in some
Oh,
way? If
thank you for asking that. That's beautiful. Well, she's been the one that's really been encouraging me to write. Like, in her life, she did, but, like, since she passed, like, and believe you me, I have many more important things in life that to the world would seem what I should be focusing on. Like, these are the things you should be focusing on because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But my mom has been showing up to tell me all those things are going to work themselves out. What you need to focus on is writing, and you need to do it. And like like a few weeks ago, she told me I needed to like take this class that I had been thinking about. So I signed up. Like, I gave myself permission. Like, I'd been holding back, and she's just like, take it. And what else did she say? Gosh, it's all been related to staying committed to this project and to this writing.
yeah,
Like, whether it's symbolically or her actual words. Um,
that's really
yeah.
beautiful. It's, one of the benefits to being a therapist is people share their stories of their
Mhm.
interactions with the other side. And so I've been hearing them for years, but in
Mm,
a clinical setting, it's not something that, is encouraged or, or it's
mm,
like, well, that doesn't, you know what I mean? Like
mhm.
we're science, even though it's like, well, if this is science, then you should be curious about what's going on here, right?
Right, right.
So it's in this metaphysical realm, but it's utterly fascinating, but, um, really amazing that your mom is encouraging you to kind of, like, stay focused on something that maybe society and other pressures externally are telling you are not, these are more important than that, but
Mhm.
kinda keeping you on track with that.
Yeah, for sure.
So this future, is it gonna be a novel? What are you gonna
Well,
write?
this the grand mystery because, like Isabella Allende said in that quote I shared, she said, "You should write the book that you would like to read." Or, like, write the kind of book that you like to read, which makes the most sense.
Right.
Um, and I feel like there are 2 kinds of books that I like to read. I like to read, like, self-help books, and I also like to read, like, adventures where the person is coming to a great spiritual understanding or a great, like, The Alchemist, or, um, like, Eat, Pray, Love, or Wild, where there's, like, just this, it's pretty much like the hero's journey, but through, like, you know, these various things until they get to, like, their dream or some beautiful lesson. So I feel like I really would love to write some kind of adventure story. Um, but at the same but at the same time have it be like a memoir. So Eat, Pray, Love is actually a memoir that is like an adventure, and so is Wild, where she's like hiking through the Pacific Rim. What is it? Pacific Trail? Like hiking all the way up California through the mountains by
I've seen
herself.
photos of it.
Yeah, so that book is a memoir too, but it's like an adventure. Um, so I would ideally like to write something like that, but I don't know the first thing about like storytelling in that sense. I feel like if I wanted to just get something done, I probably could write a self-help book within the next few months, and that'd be easy Um, or like, one of those 100 or 365 inspirational thoughts a day kind of books where you write a reflection every day. I feel like that would be easy, and I would like to do something like that, but that doesn't excite me as much as the idea of creating this journey, this memoiresque kind of journey. So I think I'm leaning more towards that, even though it feels more impossible because I really don't know the first thing about what I'm doing in that sense.
Well, if your mom has anything to do with it, you'll figure it out.
Amen.
Lenny, I know you are big on inspiration and inspiring others. What piece of advice would you give to other women who are going through some of the stuff that you've gone through
Mm,
to help, you know, I don't know, inspire them, if they're feeling stuck or
yeah. Hmm. Well, it's a great question. What advice would I give? I think um I would learn more about ADHD because I think also there's a lot of people that are kind of like self-diagnosing based on what they see on the internet. But and because of like TikToks or whatever, reels, but then they're not taking it a step further to really learn, maybe really understand. So I think whether you have ADHD or not, if the content that you're reading or you're seeing online is resonating so deeply within you, then it would behoove you to go learn more about ADHD and and really start applying those skills to your life. Because whether you have it or you don't, the skills are going to be helpful.
Mhm.
You know, um, there's a mindfulness teacher out there who I love him. I think he's great. And I've always thought he's great. He's even greater now because he is coming out of hiding.
He's coming
Because,
out of the ADHD closet?
yes, yes, the only reason I knew he had ADHD like 10 years ago was because I think I read it in one of his, I don't know if I read it in a book or he mentioned it, but it's not like something he's known for. And it's not, definitely not what he leads with. But he, like, casually mentioned it, or I maybe asked a question about it, and he gave a response that made me feel like he knew what he was talking about. I honestly don't remember what it was, but all I know is that since that moment, I have looked up to him and, like, been like, "Wow, there is someone else in this world who has this." So, Mark Coleman, the the British guy, the handsome British guy, everyone, the voice of, British Airways mindfulness, has ADHD. He really is. He really does the guided meditation for British Airways. Um,
Is he like the voice of one of the apps or something too?
yeah, I think so. I mean, he's a really big deal, and he just for the first time, like a month ago, like I just saw his post like a week or two ago. He held a mindfulness and compassion retreat for ADHD. And I'm like,
Interesting.
"Oh, well, here we go." So anyway, I think the biggest thing is, learning about it, educating yourself. Because I think my big mistake was, like, not continually learning about it. Because like I mentioned before, like, after I got my diagnosis, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I didn't really consciously place too much attention in learning all of what it entails. It's so much more than what you see on social media. It's so much more than these little snippets of information. Like if you really dive into, some of these books, you will feel so liberated and it will help you so much. So I would say the first thing to do is to learn more. Like the time you would normally be scrolling through TikToks that give you information about ADHD, just like read the
Read the book.
anti-plan, go through the anti-planner, or like,
I'm buying the book.
yeah, like just there's so many. Yeah, let's learn about it and apply the skills to, like, if you want to get a diagnosis, that's fine. But even if you don't, and even if you don't have ADHD, I think the skills apply to anyone in this like high tech like world where like attention is very limited, etc. Like there's so much said about how like like everyone has a little ADHD or blah blah blah, or like people's attention spans are kind of minimizing now. But one of the things Dr. Ned Hallowell says, is that ADHD isn't a deficit of attention. He's like it has had a bad ADHD has had bad PR, bad public image for like the past 20 years, because it should be called something else. He said this should be called VAST, which I forget what the acronym stands for, but oh, variable attention stimulus trait. Variable
Mm,
attention stimulus trait.
okay.
So because ADHD people can pay attention.
Yeah.
The challenge is that we pay attention to too much, and we don't know how to prioritize what we should be paying the most attention to.
It's
And
interesting. I wonder. I feel
mhm,
that like these things are. I think I personally think a lot of things are going to change.
yeah,
That being one of them, right? And like
yeah,
how it's treated, how maybe how we the symptomology and just the education
mhm,
and training. I don't think it's should be always be an evolving thing, but
yeah,
well, that is very hopeful advice to give. And with that,
and the other thing I wanna say is, don't listen to the haters, because there is a doctor out there. I don't even remember his name because he's so negative. But there are a lot of negative Nancy's that are just talking about how ADHD is like the worst thing ever, and how it limits you in this way and that way. And like if you listen to these people, or you follow some of these accounts that are just focusing on the negative, or just focusing on the funny, which by the way, sense of humor is an ADHD positive. But if you're only just poking fun of yourself or your ADHD, or you're only focusing on the negative, and you're not consciously directing your attention to all the positive and the gifts, and like what is so possible for you because you have these unique traits, then, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
sure.
So, yeah. So I would say follow people who inspire you with your ADHD content, not make you feel like hopeless, or like you should be laughing at yourself all day, or like you're so pathetic. Like, because that's what a lot of the content looks like.
Yikes. I did not know that. So thank you for the
Yeah. I want to fight. I want to fight a lot of these content people who want you to like feel not positive about having ADHD. Like yeah.
I know a lot of successful people that have ADHD. I've in the ones that you might not know, but they just it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
this is something I work with and
Mhm.
I don't dwell on it. I can't imagine if
Right.
they looked at it as like, a disability or some negative like, that would certainly limit me if I was viewing myself
Yeah.
in that way or not accepting myself
Right.
in totality.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, I think I'll close on this note, since
Okay.
it's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote. We should always close on a Thich Nhat Hanh quote.
You're more than welcome. He was my doorway into mindfulness, so go ahead.
Oh my God, let me see it. Let me make sure I quote him correctly. Um, But I
Yeah, rest in
I
peace.
think one of yes, I think one of the things that I have uh not that I've done wrong, but that I am wanting to liberate myself from, and so therefore am encouraging you to do the same, is the need to feel like people need to get you, or that you need to explain yourself and your ADHD to people all the time, or that you need people to understand where you're coming from. Because from my experience, no one really cares. And people, um, all that energy that you're putting into kind of like explaining that you see the world this way and that this affects you this way, instead of putting energy into other people accepting who you are, put that energy towards you accepting who you are.
Mm,
Um, because I don't think, I mean, people, I'm not saying that people don't care, but people don't care about like your inner world the way that you do because your inner world is yours, and you experience it the way you do because that's how you are. And I think ADHD people are also highly sensitive people. So we tend to be really sensitive. We want everyone to like us. We want everyone to understand us. But I think one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is to accept yourself and not be concerned with anyone's acceptance of you or understanding of you, because
yeah, they're
there's
def
not enough time in the day for that. So I think his quote is, I can't find it right now, but it's, to be beautiful, basically, you have to accept yourself. It's way more beautiful than that. Oh, maybe I'll find it. Let me find this so I don't misquote
I
him.
was gonna say, if not, I'll find it and
I
put it
will
in
find
the
it right now.
description.
Hold on, let me ask Claude.
Which one is that, like, Google? What is that?
Yeah, it's like Chat GPT. Take on quote and accepting. I just posted it yesterday. It's so funny that I really can't find it right now.
What?
You know. Oh, here you go. To
You got it?
be beautiful means to be yourself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself.
Well, those are beautiful words, and we will close on that. But Lenny, thank you so much for coming on and being yourself and being open and vulnerable and honest. You know, you bring it.
Yay!
So thank you, and we will be in touch.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today and being with us. May you find joy, flow, and adventure on your journey. And if you got something from it, please like, share, and subscribe and or comment. It means a lot. Thank you.